Hello coaches, thanks for joining me again for another World Cup breakdown. There was a drastic difference between England's attacking output and performance against the USA than there was against Iran. But what changed tactically? Why were they so successful one game and struggled to generate chances in the next? Let's take a look at Greg Berhalter and the USA system, what they did, what they planned. Let's break it down and look at that. If you enjoy the videos, as always, please like, please subscribe so you don't miss any more. Okay, let's go. So the US set up in a flat 4-4-2 against England's 4-2-3-1 was so small but so important. The two centre forwards, Weah and Wright, were allowed to put pressure, not aggressive pressure, but enough pressure on Stones and Maguire, and also screen the two England sixes of Bellingham and Rice. Now, it does two things. It stops the centre-backs from progressing on the dribble, and it also stops entry passes into the double six. So it pushes passes to England's fullbacks, which in a 4-4-2 is all about moving across the pitch, helps that system, allows that system to establish the aggressive pressure in the wide areas. So the aggressive pressure wasn't per se in the centre. The aggressive pressure was in the wide areas. But the great thing about USA and what they did brilliantly was they showed England into those wide areas by stopping the centre-backs progressing the ball and stopping the England sixes from dictating the game, getting on the game, picking passes and opening up the pitch. So another reason why two centre-forwards helped the US was that it stopped them from going in to a low block really early. And sometimes whenever a team has a lot of possession and they're in a low block, they'll eventually break you down and move you from side to side. But the US kept that mid-block. And we can see by the data that whenever England played Iran, down at the bottom you can see Iran spent 28% of the time in a low block. And England wore them down and eventually moved them and eventually created a lot of chances. But when you look at the US data from the FIFA report, they only spent 15% in the low block. They were able to stay in a mid-block, high block for 37% and 5%. So the high block wasn't a full press. It wasn't a full US press. The mid-block was what they were about. The mid-block was so effective and so strong because it prevented them from dropping in to the low block. And another way of looking at the data is to look at the crosses, and you can see here England had 15 crosses against Iran, and they're brilliant when they get the fullbacks crosses, Trippier and Shaw, but they only had 8 crosses against the US, and only one of those was successful. So it's pretty simple. The less time you spend in a low block, then the less vulnerable you are to a team that is really good from crosses. So Berhalter and his team set themselves up not to drop in that low block, keep that mid-block strong and reduce the amount of crosses. Now they had two really good centre-backs as well that could deal with crosses, but they didn't have to deal with that many because of the organisation from the team. Another way the US were set up really well defensively was that when England had to go wide in the build, which they did a lot of the times, and the concern of playing with a flat 4 in the middle is that you can get runners in those central areas. So whenever the ball was played by Trippier, Harry Kane's really good with his back to goal, can bring other midfielders into the game. And Adams had to go across, and he doubled that to prevent Kane from opening up the pitch. But then Adams is leaving his space, and what they did really well was they pushed Weston McKennie in even further. So he occupied a central area. Now, having a wide midfielder occupy a central area obviously can isolate a fullback, but I'm sure everyone who watched the game will agree that Dest and Robinson were absolutely brilliant. Great 1v1 defender, but then the mobility of Pulisic and Weston McKennie to get back out and make it a 2v2 or a 2v1 or whatever it is and manage it, again, pushes England back and leads them to restart the attack rather than get something from it. Really good. Something else USA did really well defensively was whenever a fullback dropped low and they pushed one of the midfield higher and they tried to build with a 6 and they released Rice with a bounce pass. Normally a 4-4-2 would struggle and that space could be used, but the work rate of Wright and Weah behind the ball, whenever the ball was played, the back pressure that we talk about, absolutely unbelievable. So even though Rice picks that ball up, he's under pressure immediately for Wright or from Weah, and he can't get enough time to look around the pitch and pick an option, and maybe he has to pick the first option he sees. Again, small detail, but it means that the range of passing isn't there from Rice, and he might have to keep the ball on one side, which again allows the US to get organised, to frustrate, and to keep England from moving forwards. And then the final detail from the US, sometimes from a goal kick, the pitch can be really, really big, especially with the offside rule and the ability of goalkeepers to go very long. So what England did was they pinned 5 attackers high. The US, with their 4-4-2, probably would be outnumbered in a traditional 4-4-2 press, but what they did was they press almost in a flat 4-3-3, and they used Pulisic to sit in between the right centre-back and the right back, and then entice England to see whether they're going to build or not. And then the run of play, Pulisic also did sometimes drift into this position almost as a front three. Again, US dealt with it really, really well, primarily because of the mobility of the central midfielders, Adam, Musa to go out, Weston McKennie to drop in, but also Weah and Wright to cover runs, sometimes 20, 30 yards back. Put the brakes on England's attack, push them backwards, frustrate them, and again, slow down attacks. So there you have it. I know the game got a fair bit of criticism on social media and on the TV for maybe not being exciting. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Fascinating to see again what teams do in their prep and their build. You can't have the perfect tactical plan that can shut down everything, but I think what we're seeing in the World Cup are teams to change the conditions of the game and maybe teams to challenge the opposition to play on different terms. That's in different spaces. So for me, the way the US, again, didn't allow the centre-backs to get high and get comfortable, didn't allow Rice and Bellingham to dictate, again, changes the conditions of the game, and then England have to rethink and reconsider and then work really, really hard in a high-pressure World Cup game to get the game back to their conditions. It's like a game of chess, but it's played at such a high intensity. It was absolutely brilliant. US were fantastic. Their setup was brilliant. I can't wait to see what they do against Iran next game. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you do enjoy the work and you do enjoy the content, please give it a like and subscribe. Check out more of the work on modernsoccercoach.com/shop. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.